Hey everybody, it's Xackadee here. You guys have missed me arguing on the internet like a jerk, right? Like, I understand why internet arguments wouldn't have the best reputation, but I've made a couple of internet argument videos before and people have pretty well received them. They've been pretty enjoyed, and I guess that's partly because I try to make them come across as more like intellectual debates rather than a couple of jerks screaming at each other all the time. But it's also probably because the arguments themselves are kind of fascinating. It's really interesting to see what people's different perspectives on something interesting are. And sometimes they're just plain weird. Nonetheless, I try to present this impartially and be fair about this, but I can understand if that doesn't happen all the time, so I apologise if I slip into something really biased or mean-spirited, and if that happens, someone's got to tell me off, because I have no right to do that. So that's why I want to put my hands up and say this is a totally fair video, or it should be a fair video, and if it's not, then you can take me to court, because that's just wrong. But on the bright side, this is a more interesting subject for an internet argument, and I think it should spark a lot of interesting discussion. I mean, I wonder, what do you guys think of this particular character? Axel from the Kingdom Hearts series. Yeah, we're back on Kingdom Hearts again. Can't really help it, it's all I ever seem to involve myself in. Can't help it, it's great. But hey, I might as well put it out there that this doesn't have to be the only internet argument video that I'm gonna put out there if other people want to see more of my arguments. And if you want to see me argue about subjects other than Kingdom Hearts, I get into a lot of arguments. And I've just made myself look really bad. I don't go looking for arguments, I promise. I don't know, I'm competitive, I'm drawn to conflict, I can't leave something unsaid, I have to get the last word in, I'm that kind of person, and it's not the best thing, it's not the greatest of qualities. I'm extremely stubborn, and I don't encourage people to be stubborn. But at the same time, being stubborn can have its advantages. You can get some really interesting conversations and debates out of things. And, you know, as long as you keep your cool and don't resort to insulting people, arguments can actually be very healthy. So, I've beat around the bush far too much. I'm going to do another internet argument video here, and if you want to hear more, for more things, then, you know, just tell me and I'll be happy to do that. So today's argument topic is Axel from Kingdom Hearts. As said, hero, anti-hero, or villain? Or anti-villain? Or none of those things? Or is he even real? Before we begin, I was just fiddling with my camera and I've just realised that I've been filming in 1080p this whole time. And I've already filmed quite a few videos in 1080p like that, and I don't need 1080p, I'm it's my face, just a guy on the internet talking. 1080, good grief. So yeah, I figured I can record in 720p, which is all I need, and heck, a higher frame rate as well. That's pretty cool. So yeah, I'll be doing that from now on. And Axel is real, by the way. Not a real person, but he does exist in the Kingdom Hearts universe. He's a real character, he's not like, you know what I mean. So conflict was first instigated by one Sojono, or Shono, I don't know. He has Big Boss as his avatar, so I'm just going to call him Big Boss, if that's all cool, so that's cool with everyone. So he basically made the initial controversial comment of, Axel is one of the greatest villains of the series. Actually, I've got to do an impression of Big Boss, because I'm doing voices. I'm still doing the voices. If you don't want me to do that, tell me and I won't, but I enjoy it, so I probably will anyway. Axel is one of the greatest villains of the series. And then this guy chimes in, who has Axel as his avatar, so hey, Axel's defending himself, I guess. Nah, his name's Adeolu Adaoi, I don't know. I'm gonna call him Axel again. I'm gonna call this guy Axel, if that's the same with everyone. More of an anti-hero. No, he's a straight up villain. An anti-villain at the least. And then Chili Raptor shows up. Gosh, I love that name, Chili Raptor. So this guy shows up and says, Axel was never a villain. In every game he played both sides. In Kingdom Hearts 2 he ends up saving Sora and co, and even in Chain of Memories he was still helping Sora and co. A lot! Also the same time that Days takes place. At the most he is a neutral evil. And Axel also came back in with, name one villainous thing Axel ever did. So, Sojono replied with a bit of a talk about this subject. Axel was a villain his entire life. This is going to be dramatic. When he met Roxas, he was actually faking friendship at first, as revealed by the journal report. Only after a while did he hang with Roxas after Chain of Memories, did he actually care about him and began to restore his heart faster. That's his most redeemable trait, though this could most likely be considered to be based on his memories of Lee meeting Ventus, like how he's friends with Sayax because of memories with Isa. Note that Axel didn't befriend the other later members, like Demix and Luxord, and also faked his friendship with Marluxia and Larxene. Friendship isn't a quality he cherishes when it doesn't benefit him like it does for Sora. However, he's only perceived as good in 358 Days Over 2 because he's a focused character. He was still willing to kill Naminé as mercilessly as he killed Vexen to take down Marluxia. He was coercing with Saïx with the goal of taking over Organization 13 for some reason, which explains why he eliminated Zexion when he really didn't have to. He also knew about Xion's true purpose, but didn't tell Roxas about it. He doesn't even side with Roxas when he leaves Org 13 at the end. He actually tries to force him to return to the corrupt group afterwards, like he tried to do with Xion. Also take note, he only helps Sora out I'm reading that right, yeah? Also take note, he only helps Sora out only when there are less Org 13 to oppose him, and not before. Further proof he's only looking out for himself. Axel could care less about the fate of the worlds like Sora does. As long as he can carry out his agenda, the world can burn for all he cares. Roxas actually fought back when he realized how corrupt the Org 13 was, while Axel stayed with them irregardless, even after knowing what they did to Xion and to the Disney worlds. Even if he got his friends back, he would have continued performing immoral acts under the Org 13. He'll commit any ruthless act to achieve his goals, even knowingly attacking his own friends at multiple times. All this to be memorized, which as described by Lee is very important to him, since it's a way for him to live forever. Even Sora acknowledges this to an extent, since he didn't envision Axel alongside his other friends during that "my friends are my power" scene next to Braig and Xemnas in Kingdom Hearts 3D. I'm just going to also point out real quick, he says Braig and Xemnas in Kingdom Hearts 3D, which... it's difficult because based on the secret ending that we got from the high-definition coded movie, it's possible that there are two Braigs, one's Braig and one's Zigbert, so it's hard to tell who's who, or which is which in this case, but I'm pretty sure that's supposed to be Zigbert in Kingdom Hearts 3D. At least that's the name he goes by. I mean, you could call him Braig if you want, same difference. I just wanted to point out that little technicality because I'm me. So, this was where I came in. I came into this debate here and I saw what was going on and I decided to put my 2 cents into this and let's see what I had to say. Axel's an anti-hero. He'd been on a dark path his whole life ever since joining the organization, but he's always been fighting for his own cause. Never an evil one at that. Selfish, yes. Evil, no. Anti-hero, yes. Villain, no. This is me establishing my point that he's not a villain, he's an anti-hero, and I'm making clear, anti-hero. This is a concept you should maybe get on board because this is what he is. The way he was in Castle Oblivion, serving the organization in his backstabbing way, he definitely had no morals. No more than any other organization member did. He's a nobody. It was only after Chain of Memories that he grew a heart. But even then, he was undoing Marluxia's plans and aiding Sora in taking him down. Whatever his reasons, his actions are still heroic. The fact that his motives aren't is what sets him apart as an anti-hero instead of a regular hero. He's not a moral guy, of course. Even after growing a heart, he's not much better for it. But the difference is that he genuinely cares about his friends. He grows apart from Saïx and is hurt by it. He forms a genuine bond with Roxas and Xion, developing a heart that he doesn't know how to deal with. He spends a little time with Sora and really appreciates the kind of guy he is, enough to give his life for him. How can a guy who blows himself up for a kid he barely knows really only care about himself? How can he truly be considered a villain when he's willing to sacrifice himself for Sora like that? And don't claim it was all for Roxas. Axel distinguishes the two of them quite clearly. Even if that were the case, he's still giving up his existence for someone else. But yes, he's still immoral even during the best of times. We don't sympathise or at least empathise with him because he's the focus though. We do so because his reasons are very caring and understandable. He keeps secrets from Roxas because he doesn't want to hurt him. He attacks and brings back Xion because he's trying to protect her. He even tries to turn Sora into a Heartless to bring Roxas back, freeing him from Sora. Good intentions, bad actions. Again, not a full villain, not a full hero, anti-hero. The biggest downfall of Axel's character, his biggest weakness, is that he never considers what his friends want when he tries to help them. Sure, Xion will be destroyed, but it's what she wants, Axel. He's still selfish when he tries to protect his friends, doing so as much for his happiness as he does for their sake, because he doesn't want to sacrifice his own happiness for the sake of their agency. That is wrong, but he doesn't do it out of malicious or dominating intent. He simply doesn't know what to do, which is the other major weakness of his character. In his desperation to keep his friends together, he only takes courses of actions that hurts them and inevitably drive them apart. He doesn't know how to properly take care of his friends or even to care for his friends, something which can be attributed to his time as a nobody and an organisation member. In this way, Axel is a very tragic character, but not a villainous one. I'm getting a lot of saliva in my mouth, that's a lot of talking. Where was I? Right, tragic character. After Roxas returns to Sora and Kairi is kidnapped by Sayax, he grows up a bit. That's what I love about him. He develops to learn from his mistakes and eventually stops trying to bring his friends back. He learns to accept change and move on, which brings him to protect Sora and sacrifice himself doing so in the end. Ultimately, he stops supporting the villains altogether in favour of supporting the hero for a good cause for the first time, which cements him as somebody who is anything but a villain. There are many people who'd remember him as a hero for that alone, probably Sora included, but I'd say anti-hero is still more accurate due to the long road it took for him to reach that point. Even so, when he returns as Lee in Dream Drop Distance, he is a hero, plain and simple. He's gone under a big change and devotes his time to trying to help others rather than himself, risking himself by travelling via darkness at one point to do so. Now, to correct you on a couple of things, Axel's inability to know what the right thing to do is what led him to stay with the organisation when Roxas left. He was conflicted between loyalties, and knew the organisation would destroy him if he ever tried to leave. It wasn't a desire to remain part of them and continue to serve them that kept him working for them. It was fear, doubt and indecision that made him stay while his friends left. All he really wanted was his friends back, so he tried to bring them back himself, as said in this video. Like I said above, this wasn't completely fair of him, but it was all he could think to do, and when he failed, he did leave the organisation to get his friends back. I should probably interject here, I forgot to mention, the video that I mentioned, this whole comment, it took place on a video about one of the cutscenes from Kingdom Hearts 358 over 2 days. I can't remember if it was high definition or not, it doesn't really matter. It's that cutscene where Axel confronts Xion. It was one that was in the original DS game, and, well, this was where the comments started. I won't link you to the video or anything. I'm not going to link you to this comment section. This is a conversation that's dried up and dead. It's been done for a while. I don't want to reignite this particular conversation. I'm just bringing this up and showing you this argument in order to provoke discussion about the subject and about the this particular argument in question. Like, I don't want to pick a fight with Big Boss. I'm not trying to expose him as some fraud or someone who doesn't know what he's talking about or anything. Like I said, I'm trying to make this impartial. This is supposed to be just an impartial presentation of an old argument. And I just want to see where you guys stand on the side, which side of the fence you guys stand on, and yeah, all that good stuff. Whew, I've not even finished my first comment. That said, it's not a very long argument, so we won't be here much longer. Another thing is that Sora didn't include Axel in his crowd of friends for a couple of reasons that aren't what you think they are. One is that Sora hardly knows him and at this point thought he was dead. Another is that the people who appeared in that scene are the people specifically linked to Sora's heart, who appeared earlier in his dreams. It's not like Yen, Sid or Leon shows up, but that doesn't make them any less heroic or friends of Sora than Axel is / can be. In summation, I feel like your assessment of Axel is askew and your definition of villain is too broad. Just a fancy way of saying I think you're wrong. So Big Boss came back and said, Axel was fighting for an evil cause. He was conspiring with Sayax to take over the Org 13, and Sayax is one of the most vile members. He even tried to force Roxas back into a group that cares very little for him. He wasn't aiding Sora for heroic reasons, following orders from Xemnas then. If he were heroic, he wouldn't have tried to kill Naminé or even succeeded in killing Zexion. In fact, he killed Zexion because he learned of Axel and Sayax's evil coup. He genuinely cares about being remembered, which, as his original self said, was a way for him to live forever. He was absolutely furious when Roxas forgot about him and attacked him. He doesn't even join Roxas when he leaves the Org after what they did to Xion. If he genuinely cared about his friends, Axel would have joined Roxas as he destroys those Neo Shadows and fighting Riku. So I address most of this in my next comment anyway, but Axel furious when Roxas didn't forget him? That's not how I remember it. Sora hardly knows who Terra is, but he includes him as a friend. Axel clearly died right in front of Sora, yet isn't included. Darth Vader commuted a generous act right before he died, but that doesn't make him any less a villain. Same applies to Axel. The best you could say is that he's an anti-villain, not an anti-hero. If you're thinking that the use of terms like anti-hero or anti-villain or hero or villain just aren't quite accurate, that's something that we'll get onto in a minute. But before I could say anything, my AA Axel friend jumped in and said, Axel is essentially the smart one of his trio. Roxas and Xion don't know as much about the organization, but Axel does. He wants to stay with his friends, but he's also concerned for his and their own survival, so he chooses to stay with the organization. That's why Axel is the Riku of his group. He's the reasonable one, while Sora and Roxas are the ones that usually need to be saved because they don't consider consequences. And he never tried to kill Naminé. He was the one who released her in the first place, and the only reason he ever considered harming her was because Marluxia was using her as a shield. And despite his behavior, Axel still sided with Sayax because they were still friends, and he cares about all his friends. Yeah, so there's a question with you I could raise right now and here. Is someone that has friends, does that make them a hero? Or does that make them any more heroic by having friends and loved ones? I mean, there's so many villains that have people they care about, but in cases of, like someone mentioned, like Like Big Boss mentioned, actually, in cases of like Darth Vader, he has a loved one, but the moment he cares for that person and loves that person and acts in love of that person, he starts doing heroic things and becomes a hero. Or, well, I don't know. He redeems himself, sort of, at the end. Anyway, that's kind of the point of my question. If someone has loved ones and acts in love towards other people, are they evil? Can they still be villains? Can they still be evil overall? I don't know. What do you think? It's an interesting topic. I'm kind of copping out. I gotta say something on the subject, don't I? What's my opinion? I don't know. I think you can do bad stuff. You can be evil. You can be wrong, but you can still care about people. You can still have friends. You can still love people. But I don't know if that really redeems you. That said, I kind of think everybody's redeemable. I'm that hopelessly naive and optimistic that everybody has a bit of good in them somewhere. But yeah, come on, let's face it, everybody's capable of love. So everybody's capable of good, and even when people are doing bad, they are still capable of not being bad. They are still capable of being good. Hang on, we're getting off topic here. We've got an argument to go on with. Enough of this happy, mushy, nice stuff. We have to be mean and aggressive and argumentative. Speaking of which, Big Boss comes back. Axel was willing to kill Naminé after Marluxia used her as a shield, just as he did mercilessly to Xackadee. He would have succeeded if Sora hasn't. He would have succeeded if Sora hasn't intervened. He was still knowingly commuting evil actions. At least Riku wouldn't side with a group that just killed one of his friends. No, but he did side with a group that tried to kill one of his friends. If the group could kill him too if he acted brashly, I'm sure that Riku would wait for his time to strike. Besides, the organization never killed Xion or Roxas. Axel would have stayed with the evil group and continued commuting evil actions if Roxas came back with him. Riku, on the other hand, openly opposed Org 13 no matter the odds. Riku isn't a coward like Axel is. He's willing to unleash the power of darkness to physically alter him to protect his friends without a second thought. Xemnas sent Xion to kill Roxas. Even though the opposite happened, it's still Org 13's fault that one of them had to die for their plans to come to fruition. He has a lot of good points here, but he did call Axel a coward, and Big Boss, man. Axel's sitting in the corner there crying. You really hurt his feelings. Oh yeah, Axel's a nobody. He doesn't have feelings. Or does he? Or it's probably a bit late to say this, but this video does have spoilers in it. There'll have been a text thing earlier in the video. I'll put a text thing. I'm saying yeah, there's spoilers because we're talking about nobodies and the concepts of them and a lot of dream drop distance stuff. So yeah, and I get into more of that when I jump in here with my follow up here. Okay, first of all, the organization was evil and corrupt in leadership from the beginning. The fact that a couple of members were trying to overthrow it is a good thing, if anything. You throw the word evil around far too much. Axel and Sayax had good reason not to trust Xemnas and were concerned they were just being used. As it turns out, they were. We really need more backstory on why characters like Axel and Sayax and Marluxia and Larxene were wanting to overthrow the organization. It's practically a sport. Seriously though, we need to see more of these characters and what they were doing when they joined the organization. I want to see how they all joined the organization. There's got to be a good story there, right? Secondly, this is something Axel was a part of before he had a heart. Back when he was just as susceptible to Xehanort's machinations as anyone else. Back when he actually had an excuse to lack morals. If such a thing could ever exist. This is also why his willingness to go through Naminé is more excusable. Thirdly, Axel stopped being a part of it after a while. As he grew a heart and grew apart from Sayax, he stopped being content with murder and betrayal and was more content to let things go. Forthwith, I already explained that Axel's attempts to force Roxas and Xion back into the organisation was desperation born from love, caused by his inability to let his friends be with their choices among other character flaws. This doesn't make his choices right or excusable, but they aren't villainous or done in the name of evil. Fifthly, he did aid Sora for heroic reasons when he sacrificed himself for him. When he aided Sora in Castle Oblivion, his reasons indeed weren't heroic, but his actions were. Sixthly, Xackadee did not find out about Axel and Sayax's plans. Axel eliminated Xackadee because it cleared Sayax's path to second in command, as Xackadee was set to replace him. It was a move in their game that removed a loyal follower of Xemnas and ensured security in Sayax's position at the same time. Still a cruel action to commit, but refer back to point 2. And finally, Sayax is by far an even more tragic character than Axel. Unlike Axel, he was completely manipulated by Xemnas' deceit and truly believed he lacked a heart for his entire time as a nobody. He never came to understand that it was possible to become anything more than an empty shell and served the organisation believing that it was the only way he could become whole. Heck, he and Axel's plot to overthrow the organisation was done to ensure that they wouldn't fail at this and to find out what Xemnas was really up to. He's a cold, cruel character, but he's only that way because he lost everything through lies and manipulation. It certainly doesn't help that it's implied there's a Xehanort heart fragment eating away at him. Team Sayax. Team Save Sayax in Kingdom Hearts 3. Who's with me? Okay. To go back to that second point though, the mark of a villain is their lack of regret or remorse for their evil actions, just as a mark of an anti-hero is not lacking in those feelings. Axel mentions in his reports that he regrets using Namine and the replica back in Castle Oblivion. He grows apart from the sinister nature that he once held, again making him so much more of an anti-hero than he has ever been a villain. Did you even read my comment? As I said, Axel was conflicted. He was afraid and didn't know what he wanted. Indecision is a weakness with him. He wanted Roxas to just stay in the organisation so they wouldn't destroy him. He didn't want to leave because that would make him a target as well. His loyalties were conflicted. It was only later, over more time and growth, that he committed himself to leaving the organisation and trying to find his friend. The fact that he was late to reach this point doesn't invalidate it. Axel's no villain for being a complex character caught in a lot of grey areas. Terra was in Sora's dream, Axel wasn't. What's your point? Since when is that the end-all argument for or against heroism? Terra's connected to Sora by proxy via Ven. Axel doesn't have a reason to be there. He's not as close to Sora as he is to Roxas, and unlike Terra, Axel wasn't in need. He's back in action at this point as Lee with his own arc, which is the main reason he wasn't there in a meta sense. Don't make a mountain out of a molehill to try and sound correct. Darth Vader was a villain right up until his final act of redemption, and even then people would say he died a hero. Axel was never a flat-out villain. He spent his whole life serving various sides, never with evil intent. He gradually became less cruel as a person the more his heart grew, and started acting on more complex and more heroic motives. He's not an anti-villain because he doesn't act against the heroes despite being a nice guy. He's an anti-hero because he acts against the villains despite being a selfish person. The one game where he ever had a completely antagonistic role was Chain of Memories, where he betrayed the villains and supported the hero by the end of it, which is as anti-heroic as it gets. Your judgments of him as a person and a character do not define his role and do not make him a villain. Please learn that. And then the AA Axel guy had a few words to say about me. I like this guy. Aw, isn't that nice? So I replied, thanks, I like you too. But the happiness was not to be, because then Big Boss came back and followed up with a counter-argument that addressed my arguments with his own, like you do, as you do, it's just how arguments work. The fact a couple of the members trying to overthrow a corrupt organization members doesn't make those members benevolent. We've seen many instances in real history where a corrupt ruling system was destroyed only to be replaced by an even more corrupt ruling system. Marluxia and Larxene were willing to betray Xemnas, but that no way says they're good people. In fact, Marluxia really cherished his friendship with Larxene, and was disappointed when she dies. Once again, I have to pull this up here and ask, I don't remember that. That's not how I remember things. When did that happen? Anyone help me out? Was Marluxia ever disappointed with Larxene? Has he ever cherished Larxene's friendship? Because frankly, those two are some of the most underdeveloped characters in the Kingdom Hearts series. I mean, Demyx and Luxord kind of are too, but they're kind of excused for just being members of the organisation who are just sort of doing their own thing while doing what they're told, just part of the job. It's just part and parcel of all that. But Marluxia and Larxene, those are two characters that actually tried to overthrow the organisation. They have motivations, surely. They have tried to do something very antagonistic towards other antagonists. There's, like these characters could potentially be something really complicated or really interesting, or just there's just a story. There has to be a story behind them, and yet there's nothing. We have nothing about these two characters in the Kingdom Hearts series. And there's been so many games since the game where they made their debut role as those people. It's a bit disappointing, isn't it? Anyway, I'm not here to criticise the Kingdom Hearts series, we're doing an argument here. Same goes for Sayax and Axel. The fact he was willing to go through Namine after just setting her free just further paints him as a villain and not much better than the other members at that point. At that point, I believe I've said something along those lines already, haven't I? Notice how Axel started actively working against the Org 13 after its members started to dwindle and not before. It paints Axel as a bit of a coward since he's not willing to go against the odds as the other heroes. His actions at Castle Oblivion were to further his plans to take over Org 13. Right before Axel killed Zexion, he said he learned too much, implying that Zexion learned of Axel's true intentions. He silenced him for good when he didn't have to. That's not what heroes or anti-heroes do. I know I addressed this in my next comment, but I can't help it. I have to comment on it. He silenced him when he didn't have to? He silenced him for good when he didn't have to? Even though he just said why he would have to silence him? Axel sure didn't feel enough regret to apologise to Kairi herself if he had the chance, like he said before dying in front of Sora.
Could be that he feels more emotions towards nobodies than other somebodies. This isn't factual, but I would say his personality changes towards Sora and Riku because those two start to see nobodies as actual beings instead of abominations like everyone else does. So I doubt he'd feel regret for his actions in the different worlds. This is just a theory, though.
I mentioned that sometimes arguments get weird, right?
Xion is there by proxy of Roxas, yet Axel wasn't. At that point, Sora didn't meet Lee, so neither he nor Roxas knew about him being whole at that point. In fact, there's a number of characters in that scene that are alive and about that Sora knows there. Xemnas himself is also a tragic character in the series. He's Terra's nobody, so that means he carries some traces of his original self. Although he commits heinous actions, he's still searching for his original self's friends. Hatred is all he knows because it was tragically Terra's own hatred that let Xehanort take control of his body. Heck, all of the members except Zigbur are tragic characters.
I'm not entirely sure where all of that came from, but I comment on it in my next comment anyway, so. But yes, people, just remember, Demyx and Luxord are tragic characters. More so than Zigbur, that guy who lost an eye doing a deal with a guy who didn't expect to lose his eye with. And then he got the wrong idea, so he got a bit possessed and lost his other eye to being a bit of a gold guy, Zigbur guy. Nice try.
Yet Darth Vader's legacy paints him as a villain despite some noble deeds. Same goes for other popular fictional characters like Big Boss,
like you! Sorry.
Catwoman, Kratos, Light Yagami, Godzilla, Magneto, etc. Axel does act against the heroes as well as the villains at various points.
Wait, hang on, wait a minute. So, these villains that you've all listed are expected to be seen as just villains despite some noble deeds. I don't even know that much about Godzilla, but I'm pretty sure he's supposed to be a hero in his original source context, right? He's definitely not supposed to be a villain, except in that one movie where they got it wrong. And Catwoman, I mean, I've never read a comic book in my life, and I still know that Catwoman is supposed to be an ambiguous character, so what? Similarly, also, characters like Big Boss and Kratos and Light Yagami, there are people who side with these characters, even if they're wrong or villainous in actions or deeds, and the thing is, I think all of those people lead some fairly complex lives. Maybe except Kratos, he kind of just kills everything. But yeah, that's probably an argument for another day, whether or not these characters are redeemable or not. I won't dwell on it too much, I just thought I'd raise that up. I don't think those are good examples. Magneto's pretty alright though.
Axel does act against the heroes as well as the villains at various points, and it's at these points that I love about the character. Yeah, he's not a full-on mustache-twirling bad guy, and he's not a sunshine goody two-shoes, but he does just about as many ambiguous things to make him such a treasured part of the cast. Many characters with somewhat great intentions, but bad executions, are my favorite. He didn't support the heroes at the end of Chain of Memories. If he did, he would have helped them defeat Marluxia. His plans just happened to line up with theirs at that point. Although he did indeed help Sora towards the end of Kingdom Hearts 2, it's arguable if he would have helped the other worlds like Sora and co. His MO was still ensuring that Roxas would live on through Sora, which is the most redeemable act his character committed.
Again, I would still say Axel died more for Sora than for Roxas. So it took me a while to reply to that comment, and in the meantime, AA Axel is back for a little conversation with Big Boss. Yep, I think we can all agree that Axel is an awesome and complex character. At the very least, he's with the good guys now, so I'm just gonna wait for that Axel versus Saïx fight we know is coming. Correction, Lee is with the good guys now. Axel ain't coming back, neither is Saïx. Xemnas is only back because time travel. Well, in Dream Drop Distance, he gave up making them call him Lee, so I'm pretty sure that both are fair game. Well, that was a running gag, because his nobody spent his entire existence telling people to memorize his name. At the time, people just couldn't get used to the sudden change. By Kingdom Hearts 3, everybody will be accustomed to the change. That remains to be seen. You're not Nomura. I like both names, but claiming that something in a game was a running gag because you prefer to be accurate with the name doesn't make it so. Well, by the time of Kingdom Hearts 3, I don't really see why they would keep calling him Axel. Logically, if someone keeps saying, "My name is blank, got it memorized," it'd be very hard to suddenly forget that in a short time span. Very true, very true. And his name is Lee now, and I hope that they keep calling him Lee, because that is his name now, that is his identity. It would be annoying if they kept ignoring that and kept calling him by his nobody name, which is practically a slave name in a way, actually. And I mean that genuinely, because he was a member of the organization where they put an X in his name to mark him as different from his original self, even though he by all rights should be his own self. The organization was pretty much built and designed to deconstruct your identity and make you into a pawn of Xehanort, or, if you want to use the word, a slave. So that's why Sayax and Zigbert are still going by those names, even though they're back to being Isa and Braig. So, them's the facts. Also, Lee getting called Axel in Dream Drop Distance was a running gag. I mean, it happened like 3 times, and the first couple of times it was supposed to be serious, but like by the 3rd time it was clearly coming across as something annoying to Axel. It was played for comedy, so it is a running gag. It's supposed to be anyway. So that's just a minor detail though, I just felt like bringing that up. So of course, well enough, I got back into the argument and I said,
I quote, "The fact a couple of the members trying to overthrow a corrupt organisation members doesn't make those members benevolent." I never said it did. You assume the entirely wrong meaning, friend. I never argued that Axel and Sayax's cause was righteous, only that it wasn't villainous. Because it wasn't, in case you missed that part. The fact that he was willing to go through Namine after just setting her free just further paints him as a villain, and not much better than the other members at that point. Axel's an anti-hero. Anti-heroes are willing to make sacrifices that regular heroes aren't. It's what sets them apart without making them outright villains. I'm starting to think you don't even know what an anti-hero is.
Something that started to bother me at this point was the fact that he never even seemed to entertain the discussion of the very term anti-hero. And it's like... And never gave any evidence for why he couldn't be an anti-hero as opposed to a villain. And it's at this point that I started to realise / think that he might not even know what an anti-hero is or what I'm trying to say about him.
Another quote, "Notice how Axel started actively working against the Organisation 13 after its members started to dwindle and not before. It paints Axel as a bit of a coward, since he's not willing to go against the odds of other heroes." Nope. See, that's an assumption on your part. There's a lot of things that could have been holding Axel back from taking part before the last act. He was on the run. He perhaps didn't have time to make counterattacks. He didn't know how to find and attack any of the organisation members outside of storming their fortress, which would have been suicide. He could have been unsure of what to do, owing to the indecisive nature of his character that we've seen tenfold thus far, and just never made up his mind to fight back against the organisation until that point. We don't even know what brought Axel to that place. He could have been trying to fight off the organisation already off-screen, which could be why he was so tired when fighting alongside Sora. The manga of Kingdom Hearts 2's story had Sora come across Axel in the midst of fighting nobodies. There's a lot of possibilities. The idea that he calculatedly waited until after exactly 1 member of the organisation, Zaldin, had been defeated before joining Sora's cause is something you've invented in your head with no canon basis. You're trying to paint him as a villain when the reality is that even if your version is correct, and he was just waiting until things were easier before jumping in, that still doesn't make him a villain. Anti-heroes are just the type to support the heroes when it best suits them. You know what villains do? They don't support the heroes at all. Your logic is a bit twisted. Right before Axel killed Zexion, he said he learned too much, implying that Zexion learned of Axel's true intentions. No, this isn't what Axel was referring to. If it was, why do you think Zexion never brought it up? He never learned that. Part of this is a writing fault, but it's just Axel giving Zexion an excuse for killing him. He's half lying, basically. Though it is true that he didn't want Zexion returning with him to report on the events of Castle Oblivion. Eliminating him gave him full control on reporting the truth to his superiors. Also, bit hypocritical here, he silenced him for good when he didn't have to, but according to you, he did have to. According to both of us, he did have to. And that is what anti-heroes do. You'll notice a trend here. I'm pointing out the anti-hero thing an awful lot in this one. Axel sure didn't feel enough regret to apologise to Carrie herself if he had the chance, like he said before dying in front of Sora. I'm really not comprehending this. Kyrie was locked up in a cell where Axel couldn't reach her. He physically couldn't apologise if he wanted to, and the first chance he got to pass on an apology to someone who might reach her, Sora, he did. And this was where I just couldn't take it anymore, and I just had to specifically address this. Furthermore, what are you on about? What makes you think that an anti-hero has to be completely morally sound? They aren't! They play dirty, they lie, they kill, they steal, they manipulate. The fact that they're good guys, despite being immoral and selfish and cowardly and controlling, is exactly what makes them anti-heroes. Do you not grasp this concept or something? Xion wasn't there by proxy of Roxas. She was there because she had a direct connection to Sora. She was in his heart, after all. And I told you, it's a meta thing with Lee being alive that keeps him out of that scene. Out of universe? Or do you not know what meta means either? Oh, getting sassy. Anyway, you're missing the point. Nothing in that scene proves anything concerning your argument. There's a lot of friends Sora could have... There's a lot of friends Sora has that could have joined him in that scene, but they didn't, because the only ones who appeared were ones that had appeared throughout his dream in that world, which Lee did not, because he had no reason to be there. Even if he was, even though he isn't, it makes no difference. It does not change the objective role he plays in the Kingdom Hearts series, which is quite bluntly not the role of a villain. I'm just going to contribute here that Dream Drop Distance revealed that Xehanort was very much alive in Xemnas, and any trace of Xehanort is not present in Xemnas' agenda. Plus, Zygbert is half Xehanort, so his life has been pretty derailed, especially if the first scene in Dream Drop Distance is anything to go by.
Hey Xehanort, what's
Axel's anti-hero status isn't defined by the volume of his actions on whatever side or by the amount of effort he puts into serving whatever side at one time. It's about his character as a whole, about his role throughout the series. You keep confusing anti-heroic with heroic, and Axel is not a heroic person. But the dark and twisted aspects of his character are what make him an anti-hero, while his lack of a role as a straight antagonist, his work against the villains of the series, lack of malevolent intentions, and his conflicted nature of his character in general is what doesn't make him a villain.
At this point I shall now drop the mic. This is the mic. Sorry if you were wearing earphones or something. And I'm not dropping the mic because I say, yeah, might as well end the argument there. The argument literally did end there. The guy never replied after that, and that was the end of the discussion. So maybe I got him. Maybe I got straight to the heart of the matter and I exposed the issue that he had with this whole thing, and just he didn't want to continue anymore or something, I don't know. But point is, there was no continuation of this, there was no part 2 to come after this. This is it, this is the end of the argument. Oh wait, no, there was someone else who did comment on the thread afterwards, where it's Own Avenged, who I assume was commenting on the whole name thing about people, you know, calling Axel Lee, where he just says, because Axel is who they all know. They don't know Lee. Maybe I should... This could be worth an entire video if anyone feels like it's necessary, but I don't think it is. I'm sure it should be pretty obvious, but let me just state, in case people aren't clear on this, everybody does know that Axel and Lee are the same person, right? People know that, right? That's an accepted, known, general thing. I mean, I'm sure loads of fans do know. I mean, I know it, so surely there are loads that do, but I'm a little worried. Are there people who don't know this? So, we've reached the end of this video. That's the entire argument as there is to be seen of it, and all that good stuff and nice things. So, what do you guys think? This is your turn now. I've done the video, I've shown you the argument, that was nice and fun, and I've got a couple more arguments I could always post, and I'm probably going to run into more people that I'm going to end up debating stuff with, and it's interesting to see these different opinions and thoughts get bounced around, and I don't know, this was a nice wee short one that I figured was nice and safe, so I figured I'd make this, and just if in case anyone wants to see more internet arguments with me and my little voices and just feedback. I'd like to hear the feedback, because I shouldn't make too many videos based on what I want to do when you're the guys that I'm making the videos for. So what do you want? What do you want to see? What do you think? What did you like? And did you like this? And if you did, sure enough, you can always subscribe and see more if people want to do that, because I could always do that anyway, because it's fun. I gotta say, it's fun. These videos are easy to make and enjoyable, so... Yeah, I pretty much said my piece. That's all there is to say and all there is to be said, apart from the question, does Axel really exist? And the answer is yes, he does. But is he a hero? Or is he a villain? Or is he an anti-hero? What do you think? And if so, if to any of those things, why? I want to hear what you guys say, because there's probably a lot of you who are more intelligent than me, so just throw your thoughts forward, and we'll just have a nice fun old time until the next video comes out. Cheerio till then.